What really happens to engine oil after 300,000 miles? Most people assume they know, until they see the truth. After testing multiple engines for hundreds of thousands of miles, the results shocked even me. In this video, I reveal what oil actually looks like after extreme heat, stress, and real-world mileage, and why mechanics rarely mention it. Some expensive oils failed early, while a few cheap ones survived far beyond expectations. You will learn the real habits, intervals, and oil chemistry that determine whether your engine dies young or lasts forever. After this, you will never look at oil the same again. February 4th, 2024. A dusty test garage outside Phoenix, Arizona. The sun was barely up, and already the heat inside the metal building felt like someone had parked a jet engine in the corner. This was the day the results finally came in. The day I would get to see what 18 months, 6 engines, hundreds of oil samples, and over 300,000 miles of testing had done. I didn't expect anything dramatic. I genuinely thought the data would confirm what we all believe. Expensive oil protects engines better, cheap oil destroys them, and synthetics always win. Simple, logical, predictable. I was wrong on every single point. The test began as a simple curiosity project. I had access to several high-mileage commuter cars, old fleet vehicles, a couple of turbo engines, and a small mountain of donated oil. Not sponsored, not cherry-picked, just whatever drivers actually used. Some engines were pampered, some were abused, some lived in stop-and-go city heat, others survived highway punishment. In other words, the real world. The exact conditions your engine experiences every day. We drained the oil, installed fresh filters, and committed each car to strict intervals, 5,000 miles for some, 10,000 miles or more for others. Every single interval, we pulled a sample and sent it straight to the lab. They tested for everything: viscosity breakdown, oxidation, wear metals, fuel contamination, additive depletion. The kind of analysis that tells you, with brutal honesty, whether your oil is doing its job or silently killing your engine. For the first few weeks, nothing looked strange. The premium oils behaved like premium oils. The cheap oils thinned out a little faster. The mid-price oils stayed somewhere in the middle. If the test had ended there, this video would not exist. But the first shock arrived just 20,000 miles in. One of the engines, running a top-shelf, heavily advertised synthetic oil, suddenly showed elevated iron and aluminum wear. Not slightly elevated, significantly elevated, like something is wrong inside the engine. At the same time, the viscosity dropped almost 20% below where it started. Heat shear, breakdown, an oil collapsing under stress long before it should. I assumed a fluke. Maybe the owner drove the car harder than usual. Maybe the filter installation was bad. Maybe we caught a weird batch, so we continued. Then, engine number 2, using a different premium oil, showed the exact same issue: metal wear creeping upward, additives dropping faster than expected, oxidation scores climbing. At only 30,000 miles of total testing, 2 premium oils were already losing the fight. And that is when I started to feel uneasy. Something was not adding up. The lab provided the numbers, but the engines provided the truth. The cars using the expensive oils had increasingly rough cold starts, slightly louder valve tap on warm mornings, fuel trims creeping upward, meaning the engine was compensating for something. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger warnings. Just subtle signs that oil was not doing its full job anymore. Meanwhile, one of the cars using a mid-tier oil, a jug that cost half as much as the big names, kept coming back with surprisingly clean results. Low wear metals, stable viscosity, strong additive retention. And the car itself? Quiet, smooth, no complaints at all. At first, I laughed. There was no way a middle-shelf oil was beating the premium stuff, so I dug deeper. We reviewed samples again, rechecked the lab sheets, inspected the engines. Everything pointed to the same answer. The fancy oils were struggling. The cheaper oil was not. That is when the tension really hit me. If the oils we trust, the ones people pay extra for, could fail this early, what else did we not know about oil performance? The turning point came when we pulled the valve cover off the engine running one of the expensive synthetics. I expected to see a spotless interior. After all, that is the promise, right? Instead, a thin amber varnish coated the metal surfaces. Not sludge, not catastrophic, just early signs of heat stress and decomposition. Then we checked the engine running the mid-tier synthetic. It was cleaner, not by a little, by a lot. And that is when I realized this was not just an oil test anymore. This was uncovering something bigger, the hidden truth about oil chemistry, engine wear, heat cycles, and marketing myths no one in the industry wants you to see. Because if two expensive oils failed early, and a cheaper one somehow survived, what would happen when we pushed all these engines past 100,000 miles? Past 200,000? Past 300,000? That is when the real story began. And the results were nothing anyone expected. When we crossed the 100,000-mile mark, everything that looked confusing in the early data suddenly made perfect sense. Because oil does not reveal its secrets in the first few thousand miles. It reveals them slowly, in oxidation, in thinning, in residue, in microscopic metal flakes. And at 100,000 miles, the patterns finally stabilized. The truth stepped out from the numbers. Oil is supposed to be simple. You pour it in, drive, change it, repeat. But after watching 6 engines run every week for nearly a year, I realized how insanely complex the chemistry is. Every oil behaves differently under heat, stress, shearing forces, short trips, long hauls, idling, sludge load, and no brand, expensive or cheap, performs the same across all conditions. We laid out hundreds of sample bottles on a stainless steel table, rows of amber, brown, black, and almost tar-colored jars. The colors alone told a story. Some oils darkened slowly and evenly. Others went jet black fast, but still tested strong. A few stayed deceptively clean-looking while their chemical structure collapsed. That is when I understood something critical. The color of your oil means absolutely nothing without knowing the chemistry behind it. We began comparing viscosity. A few oils held their 5W30 weight almost perfectly. Others sheared down to a thin 5W20 after a few long summer highway runs. Some thickened far beyond what was safe, forming sludge precursors from oxidation and heat damage. Engines running these oils showed slight performance dips, hesitation, slower throttle response, weaker fuel economy, rougher idle. Nothing dramatic, just the early signs of friction winning the battle. Then, the wear metals. This was the moment the experiment went from interesting to disturbing. Iron, aluminum, copper, chromium, tiny pieces of the engines floating in the oil. Some oils spiked wear metals after just 5,000 miles, even the expensive ones. Others, unbelievably, kept wear metals low even past 15,000 miles of hard use. One budget oil produced lower iron counts than a premium oil advertised for maximum engine protection. When we saw the data, we honestly thought the lab made a mistake. We sent the samples back. Same result. One particular oil, a mid-priced synthetic that's on shelves everywhere, consistently showed shockingly low wear across high heat, towing, and city torture testing. Meanwhile, 2 premium oils with fancy marketing campaigns experienced early additive burnout. Detergents dropped fast. Anti-wear additives collapsed. Heat stability failed. Price had nothing to do with performance. Brand reputation meant even less. The next surprise came when we inspected the engines in person. The engine using the premium oil that failed early had a noticeable brown tint inside, varnish forming around the cam caps and staining the timing chain guides. It was not catastrophic, but it was proof the oil was not holding up. Then we cracked open the engine that used that mid-tier synthetic. It looked years younger. The valvetrain was visibly cleaner. The chain had less discoloration. The oil galleries were not showing varnish streaks. The difference was shocking. And then came the sludge engine, the one that worried me the most. One oil, just one, produced visible sludge chunks after extended high heat testing. It was not even the cheapest oil. It was a mid-priced synthetic that most people think is completely safe. Under normal use, it probably is. But under extended intervals and heavy heat, its base oil oxidized aggressively. Additives collapsed. The oil literally cooked into sticky jelly. Once we saw that, I knew exactly why some engines die early even when owners follow the manual. Meanwhile, the oil that shocked us all, the one nobody expected to win, kept showing consistent results all the way through 200,000 miles. Low wear, stable viscosity, strong additive life, minimal oxidation, clean internals. It did not promise miracles on the label. It did not have extreme marketing. It was not the most expensive. But its chemistry, its actual base stock quality and additive package was simply better. And that was the moment it hit me. Oil companies do not sell results. They sell trust. And that trust is built on marketing, not chemistry. But chemistry tells the truth. By the time we hit the 200,000-mile mark, two things were absolutely clear. First, some oils fail long before you ever notice anything is wrong. Second, engines do not die from age, they die from bad lubrication. But the real twist would not arrive until we crossed 300,000 miles, when the engines were finally torn down, piece by piece, revealing the final verdict, and the oil that nobody expected would come out on top. When the odometers collectively rolled past 300,000 miles, everything came down to one final moment, the teardown, the part every mechanic dreads and secretly lives for. Because pulling an engine apart is like opening a time capsule. It tells the truth you cannot hide, cannot spin, cannot wish away. Every stain, every scratch, every deposit is a confession. We lined up the engines on stands, 6 of them, different brands, different oils, different lifespans, different stories. And then the work began. The first valve cover came off slowly, the bolts cracking loose like tiny knuckles. The smell was unmistakable, warm, cooked oil. Not burned, but tired. The kind of smell you get from oil that has been pushed past its comfort zone too many miles. Inside, the premium oil engine looked okay, not great. A thin amber varnish glazed the cam caps. The timing chain had brown discoloration from heat cycles. The oil return passages had narrow streaks that hinted at early sludge formation. Nothing catastrophic, nothing dramatic. Just the kind of wear that quietly steals horsepower and accelerates aging. But it was not clean. And for the price the owner had paid for that oil, it should have been spotless. Then we moved to the next engine, the one that had been running that heavily advertised extended mile synthetic. If any oil was supposed to win this test, it was this one. But the inside told a different story. Darker varnish, more scoring on the cam lobes, slight sludge formation at the corners of the head. It looked older than its mileage. This was the oil designed for long intervals, yet it seemed to struggle the most when pushed long. I stared at it for a long moment, because that was the moment the marketing cracked. The first clear proof that the promises on a bottle do not always translate inside the engine. Then came the one engine I was genuinely nervous to see, the sludge candidate. The one that showed high oxidation on sample reports. The one that scared me halfway through the test. The moment the cover lifted, everyone stepped back. Thick, tar-like sludge clung to the head like someone had brushed the metal with dark honey. The timing chain was coated, The corners pooled with goo. The oil return channels were constricted, coated in gel-like residue. We ran a screwdriver through it. It left a trench. This is what most drivers never see until it is too late. Sludge does not kill an engine instantly. It kills it quietly by strangling lubrication until something snaps. A chain tensioner, a bearing, a pump. By the time it shows symptoms, the damage is permanent. Finally, we reached the engine everyone expected the least from. The mid-tier oil. The underdog. The bottle people walk past because it is not expensive enough to feel special. The bolts came off. The cover lifted. And everyone in the room froze. It was clean. Not perfect, not lab new, but shockingly, impressively clean. No sludge. Barely any varnish. The cam lobes were crisp silver. The oil passages were open. The timing chain glistened with only mild staining. The head interior looked years younger than the mileage. This was the moment everything we thought we knew about oil changed. Because the oil that outperformed them all was not the priciest. It was not the most famous. It was not the one with the biggest ad campaign. It was simply the oil with the best chemistry for real-world heat, stress, and daily use. And that's when the real truth hit me like a slap. Most engines do not die from age. They die from lubrication failure long before age ever becomes the problem. Every sludge chunk I saw was preventable. Every varnish stain was avoidable. Every worn cam lobe was a warning ignored. The difference between an engine that dies at 120,000 miles and one that easily passes 300,000 miles comes down to the habits the owner follows and the oil they trust. Not the price of the oil, not the brand hype, not the label claims, the chemistry and the maintenance. And so, after 300,000 miles of testing, endless lab samples, and 6 engine autopsies, the truth is simple. Some oils are overpriced. Some cheap oils are dangerously weak. But a select few, even mid-priced ones, deliver real protection for real engines in the real world. And if you choose the right oil, if you respect change intervals, if you protect your engine from heat, if you keep the filters clean, your engine can outlive the car itself. That's the real result of this test. Simple, powerful, unavoidable, and absolutely not what anybody expected. If this 300,000-mile test opened your eyes, hit that like button so more drivers stop getting fooled by oil marketing. Comment which oil you trust. I'm checking the comments and replying to the best ones. And if you want to see the full list of winners, losers, and raw lab results, tap the next video on the screen now. Take care of your engine, and it will repay you for years.